Namaste, welcome back to my channel Qubit Educational Services. In this video we are going to solve question number 13 to question number 18, that is the last question from Engineering Mathematics section of GATE XE 2008. Okay, I have already uploaded the first two parts in this series wherein I have solved and discussed first 12 questions and the remaining 6 questions, that is from 13th to 18th, we will be discussing them today in this video. Okay, so we will start with question number 13th, which is based on ordinary differential equations of second order, and specifically it is based on the Cauchy-Euler's differential equation. So the question says one of the values of 1 over 4x squared d to the power 2 plus 8x d plus 1 operated on log x, where d is the operator d by dx is ln x plus 4, ln x minus 4, 4 ln x minus 4 and 4 ln x plus 4. Now the reason why I said that this is actually a problem on Cauchy-Euler's differential equation is as follows. The operator d is accompanied by x and the operator d to the power 2 is accompanied by x squared. And this is basically the standard format of Cauchy-Euler's differential equation, and this question is actually finding us to determine the particular integral, okay, where the right hand side of the differential equation is log x. Now to solve this problem, I'm using the standard substitution ln x equal to z. Okay, now ln x equal to z also corresponds to x equal to e to the power z, and now we are going to change the independent variable from x to z, because it will transform the differential equation into a differential equation of constant coefficients. Currently the coefficients are variable, right? Yes. Now you should know these formulas, and one of the formulas is the operator xd, where d is d by dx, is equivalent to d by dz, and secondly and more importantly, the operator x squared into d to the power 2 is equivalent to d by dz of d by dz minus 1. Okay, so if you know these results, well and good. If you don't, then let me prove the second one for you, and from that you can very easily obtain the first one. Okay, so we will start with, in order to prove this, we will start with the expression for dy by dx. Okay, now let us change the independent variable from x to z through chain rule. So this will be equal to dy by dz multiplied by dz by dx. Okay, now let us keep dy by dz as it is because we want it. Now how can I write dz by dx? Look at this expression now. This is the substitution that we have chosen, and from this dz by dx is 1 upon x. Okay, so that dz by dx which is here, this becomes 1 upon x, and this 1 upon x when brought to the left hand side will give us x dy by dx equal to dy by dz. Okay, and that is what I was talking about. X into d is equivalent to d by dz, and because they have already used the letter capital D here to denote d by dx, I am going to choose the symbol d bar to represent d by dz. Okay, and therefore the required integral is now 1 upon 4 multiplied by d bar into d bar minus 1 plus 8 d bar plus 1. Okay, so note carefully that xd has now been replaced by d bar, because d bar is d by dz and we have proved that here. Secondly, x squared d to the power 2 has now been replaced by d bar into d bar minus 1. Okay, that is this one. The coefficients are to be kept as they are. Nothing will happen to this one, and log x will become z. Okay, now we will try to simplify this expression, or rather this operator, and which will give us the following. Okay, let's open the bracket. So it will be 4 d bar to the power 2 minus 4 d bar plus 8 d bar plus 1, which then becomes 4 d bar to the power 2 plus 4 d bar, because plus 8 minus 4 is plus 4, plus 1 on side. Okay, Now at this stage, what I have done is I have considered this to be an expansion of a geometric progression. Okay, so please remind yourself that, or recall this, 1 upon 1 minus r is actually the expansion, or 1 upon 1 plus r is actually 1 minus r plus r squared minus r cubed plus r to the power 4 and so on. Okay, so in this case what I have done is I have considered r to be 4 d bar to the power 2 plus 4 d bar. So this is one of the standard ways of evaluating particular integral if the function that you wish to integrate is a polynomial function. Okay, because we know that after some stages the derivatives of polynomial functions are all equal to 0. Okay, so we can now follow this particular infinite series here, which will give us 1 minus r, which is 4 d bar to the power 2 plus 4 d bar, plus 4 d bar to the power 2 plus 4 d bar the whole squared and so on. Okay, now there is no need to consider everything that is present here, because only the first order derivative of z is what's going to matter. All higher order derivatives will be equal to zeros. So even here 4 d bar squared, or d bar to the power 2, when operated on z is going to give you 0, right? So it will be z because of 1 minus 0 plus this 4 will come here, because derivative of z with respect to z is 1. Okay, and because of this negative sign it will become z minus 4. Okay, but what is z equal to? Z is equal to log of x, correct? So that has given us log of x minus 4, which is equal to, well, which is there in option B, and hence the option to question 13 is B. Okay, alternately, if you don't know all this stuff, either you can learn it now and get used to it as soon as possible, or there is an alternative to what I have done. So I'll just tell you what that alternative is. What you have to do is you have to observe all the options and note that everything can be written in the form a into log of x plus b. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to first take this as it is. Let me use blue color for this. So take 1, then you take its derivative because it is d, and then you multiply it by 8x. Okay, then you take the derivative and differentiate it once again, so that you will get the second derivative multiplied by 4x squared, and add the 3 terms that you have got. Term number 1, a ln x plus b. Term number 2, 8x into the first derivative of a log x plus b, which will be a upon x, plus the third term, which will be 4x squared into second derivative of a log x plus b. Add everything and equate the addition to log of x, and then you will get, well, obviously the constant term has to be 0, so whatever constant term you get, from that you will get one relation between a and b, and the second relation between a and b will be obtained by comparing the coefficients of log x on both the sides. Here it is 1, and based on that you will get the values of a and b, and a should turn out to be 1 and b should turn out to be -4, as is the case with option B. Okay, so even without knowing how to solve it by the Cauchy-Euler's differential equation method, you can solve the problem by cleverly utilizing the common things among all the 4 options. Okay, so this was question number 13th. Let's now go to question number 14th. Question number 14th is also based on ordinary differential equations, like the previous one. This question reads, a particular integral of the differential equation d2y by dx squared minus y equal to sec h of x is, and we have 4 options. To solve this problem, I have used the method of variation of parameters. Okay, first of all, let us remind ourselves that hyperbolic sec is actually the reciprocal of hyperbolic cos. So sec h of x is 2 upon e to the power x plus e to the power negative x. Okay, Secondly, this differential equation is a linear differential equation with constant coefficients of second order. So we can very easily determine the auxiliary equation from the left hand side, which is m squared minus 1 equal to 0. If you solve it, you will get the roots as plus or minus 1, and this is going to give us the complementary function yc, or in some books you will find that the author calls it yh, which also stands for the solution, or the general solution to the homogeneous differential equation, where sec h of x is not there, or it's 0. Okay, so it is c1 e to the power x plus c2 e to the power negative x, and because we are trying to solve this problem by the method of variation of parameters, it is absolutely necessary to first determine yc or yh. Okay, so let's call it 1. Now we know that the particular integral yp has to be in the form u y1 plus v y2, correct, where y1 and y2 are now e to the power x and e to the power minus x respectively. So y1 is e to the power x and y2 is e to the power negative x. Okay, now let's first determine the Wronskian, which is the determinant of y1, y2 in the first row and its derivatives in the second row. Okay, so y1 is e to the power x, y2 is e to the power minus x. In the second row you can see their derivatives, and if you find the determinant's value, it will turn out to be negative 2. So it's a good thing that the Wronskian has turned out to be a constant, because then our integrand will be a much easier whenever we calculate u and v. Okay, so let's call the Wronskian's value, that equation is 2. And now we will recall the formulae that we use to determine u and v. In usual notations, the first function, that is u, is given by negative of the integral of y2 into x divided by the Wronskian w, and here y2 is e to the power negative x, the other part of the complementary function. And what is x? X is nothing but our right hand side of the differential equation, which is hyperbolic sec of x. Okay, so this is x now. Okay, all right. Now what I think is, let me not explain you the integration. I hope all of you know how to integrate such functions, but you can pause the video and see the substitutions that I have performed and the way I have integrated to reach the final answer for you. Okay, you should carefully note how the integrand has been formed. It is the standard formula that u is equal to negative of the integral y2 into x upon w with respect to x. y2 is the other function in the solution of the homogeneous differential equation. In this case, it is e to the power minus x. X is the right hand side of the differential equation, which makes it non-homogeneous. In this case, it is sec h of x, and in the denominator, it is the Wronskian, okay, which we evaluated earlier, which is negative 2. Okay, and then by using this substitution, e to the power minus x equal to t, finally u turns out to be 1 upon 2 with a negative sign, log of mod of e to the power x plus e to the power minus x divided by e to the power x. Okay, so u is done. Let us go to v. Same thing with v. There is a standard formula for v as well, similar to u. V is equal to integral of y1 multiplied by x divided by w. W is negative 2, we know that. X is sec h of x. I have used the exponential representation of x, very much like we did in calculating or finding u. And y1 is now e to the power x, the first function that we got while solving the homogeneous differential equation. Okay, now just like you, I'm skipping the integration part. I hope you will get to know how I've done it. I've used the substitution e to the power x equal to f. Again, I'm telling you, you can pause the video and see or go through the process of integration. If you do that, okay, v will turn out to be negative 1 upon 2 log of e to the power minus x plus e to the power x upon e to the power minus x. You have to carry out the integrations very carefully, otherwise it is going to be a difficult task for you to handle everything. Okay, So once you compute u and v, let us go back to the general solution and substitute these functions there. Okay, so yp is u y1 plus v y2, and let me again remind you that y1 that we have taken is e to the power x, and y2 that we have taken is e to the power minus x. Okay, so you can see y1 here and y2 here. Okay, and the functions u and v that we determined through integration are now negative 1 upon 2 into ln e to the power x plus e to the power negative x minus x. Now this minus x has come because I have taken the denominator inside the logarithm outside. Okay, so basically I've used the property log of a by b is log of a minus log of b, and as you can see in u, e to the power x is in the denominator, right? So it will be log of the numerator minus x. Okay, all right. Same thing can be done, or rather I have done it for v. Okay, so it is plus x now because it is negative of negative x, because in the denominator of v it is not x or e raised to x, but it is e raised to minus x. Okay, all right. Now we have got the answer, but it differs from the ones in the options. Okay, so you have to now find an equivalent version of this, and to get it, what I have done is I have taken log of e to the power x plus e to the power minus x common, of course with the minus 1 upon 2 which is present in both these terms. Okay, so in the first term what we'll get is e to the power x, and from the second term we'll get e to the power minus x. So it is e to the power x plus e to the power minus x upon 2, which happens to be hyperbolic cos, which will of course be accompanied by negative of the log of e to the power x plus e to the power minus x. Okay. Second thing, now we'll consider the remaining terms. Okay, again negative 1 upon 2 is there, and now let us take negative 1 upon 2 into x common, so it will be accompanied by this negative sign and e to the power x is this. Excuse me. And from the second term there will only be e to the power negative x, because this is positive x and this is negative 1 upon 2, which we have already taken common, right? Now in this case, if I take this negative sign outside, it will make it x by 2, right? It will make it x by 2, and inside e to the power x will become positive and e to the power minus x will become negative. And what is e to the power x minus e to the power negative x upon 2? That is sine hyperbolic, so it is x into sine h of x. Okay, and if you compare yp that we have got with the options, you will find that it matches with option A. Negative ln e to the power x plus e to the power minus x into cos hyperbolic plus x into sine h of x. Okay, let us just go back to the options. Option A, yeah, so it is x sine h of x here, ln cos h of x, and that's basically the same that we have got here. Okay, we can adjust the terms, and then negative ln e to the power x plus e to the power minus x. Okay, so that completes the solution, and the correct option is option A. Let's now go to question number 15, which is based on partial differential equations, specifically wave equation. If u is u of x comma t, and it is such that da bar to u by da by d squared is equal to 4 into da bar to u by da by x squared for values of x lying between 0 and pi, t greater than or equal to 0, with conditions u 0 comma t equal to u pi comma t equal to 0, u x comma 0 equal to 0, da bar u by da bar t at x comma 0 is equal to sin x, then u of pi by 3 comma pi by 6 is 3 by 4, 3 by 8, root 3 by 4, root 3 by 8. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, this is a question on wave equation. Okay, and the standard form of any wave equation is utt is equal to c squared uxx. Okay, so in our case, c squared is equal to 4 or c is equal to 2. Well, it has some physical significance. You can read the theory of wave equation to actually know what that is. Okay, all right, but let's return to the question now. I'm going to start this the solution by writing down the standard solution of the wave equation solved by or obtained by the method of separation of variables. Okay, if you know the separation of variables, we assume that the general solution u of x comma t is in the form f of x into g of t. So you start, then you'll get two ordinary differential equations which you solve, and if you take the acceptable solutions considering the physical constraints, then it is u equal to c1 cos mx plus c2 sin mx multiplied by c3 cos cmt plus c4 sin cmt. Okay, so you have to know this particular solution, otherwise it will be difficult to solve the problem. Okay, now we will find or determine the values of c1, c2, c3 and c4 by applying these conditions given to us in a specific order. Okay, so first let us use the first boundary condition, which is u of 0 comma t equal to 0. Okay, this means whenever x is 0, no matter what the value of t is, the displacement is 0. Okay, now we shouldn't touch the second bracket here because it is independent of t. So once I let x to be 0, it will give me c1 plus 0, correct, because sin 0 is 0, cos 0 is 1. But if u is 0 for all values of t, it implies that c1 must be equal to 0. Okay, and now I'm going to use, so I've utilized this, so let me just chop it out. Now let me use the initial condition u of x comma 0 equal to 0. Okay, so if I use it, u of x comma 0 equal to 0, then c3 becomes 0. Okay, so this is the initial condition now that I'm going to use. Okay, so if I do that, then it will give me c3 into 1 plus c4 into 0, right, because sin 0 is 0, again the same reason, cos 0 1, sin 0 0. So c3 has become 0, so our solution has got now modified to c2 into c4 sin mx into sin cmt, but as c is equal to 2, it is sin of 2mt. Okay, so we have utilized one initial condition and one boundary condition. We utilize the initial condition now, so let me just chop it out, and now let me use the second boundary condition, that is u of pi comma t equal to 0. That is, at the other boundary also there is no displacement, or in other words, both the boundaries are fixed, or both the ends of the vibrating string are fixed. Okay, so if u of pi comma t is 0, now we cannot make c2 or c4 0, otherwise we will get the trivial solution. Okay, same thing with t, we can't see, because the independence of u on t is very clear when x is pi, right? When x is pi, it is equal to 0. So this gives me sin m pi equal to 0, which allows me to find multiple values of m. So m is basically any natural number. For any natural number m, sin of m pi is equal to 0, right? Okay, so now I'm going to use the principle of superposition of solutions, because the differential equation is linear, okay, and homogeneous, of course. So I can now present the series solution. So I can say that u of x comma t is equal to summation as n runs from 1 to infinity. So I expect c2 into c4, this product, to change as n changes. So I'm writing it as bn sin nx into sin 2nt. And now I will go to the fourth condition, the one that has not been yet used, this one. Okay, this is yet another initial condition. Okay, u with respect to t, so you can say that this is the initial velocity, because you are differentiating the displacement partially with respect to t, so it must be velocity. Okay, so velocity, the initial velocity is given by sine of x. All right. Okay, so first you differentiate u with respect to t partially, which will give you cos 2nt multiplied by 2n, chain rule. Okay, now at t equal to 0, what will we get? We will get another infinite series which will be summation n runs from 1 to infinity bn sin nx into 2n, but because again cos 0 is 1. Okay, but we know that this is actually equal to sin x. It's given in the problem. Now this saves our time of finding the Fourier coefficient bn through integration. If it had been some other function, then we would be forced to actually use the bn formula, the formula for bn, to calculate it in terms of n. Okay, so in university level problems you may have solved it. One of the very typical functions is Lx minus x squared or pi x minus x squared, and you may have already determined its Fourier series, okay, when you studied it. But anyways, we'll return to the problem now. So if you remove the summation and start writing down the left hand side, the first term itself is enough, because all the other terms will have their corresponding bn's to be zeros, because there is no sin 2x, sin 3x, sin 4x here. Okay, and therefore we'll get b1 sin x into 2 into this 1 equal to sin x, which implies that b1 must be equal to 1 upon 2. Okay, so b1 is 1 upon 2 now, and for all other values of n, for n greater than or equal to 2, bn is equal to 0, because there are no other terms here, okay, accompanying sin x. Alright, so we have obtained b1, and technically we have also obtained u, which is equal to 1 upon 2, that is b1, sin x, sin nx, and sin 2t, because c is equal to 2. Okay, alright, and lastly, let's not forget that we want a value or a particular solution. Well, I can't say particular solution, but value of the solution. Okay, so at pi by 3, when x is pi by 3, sin pi by 3 is root 3 by 2. 2t, where t is pi by 6, so again it is sin pi by 3, so it will be again root 3 by 2. Root 3 by 2 squared is 3 by 4, into 1 upon 2 is 3 by 8, which is option B. Okay, yes, so question 15, option B. Let's now solve question number 16, which is from statistics. The two lines of regression of the variables x and y are 4x plus 2.4y equal to 20 and 1.6x plus 4y equal to 12. The coefficient of correlation between x and y is, and we have got 4 options, and well, basically we have pairs positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay. Now, one very important thing you should note here is we don't know which one of them is of y on x and which one of them is of x on y. So we have to suppose that the first line that is given, 4x plus 2.4y equal to 20, is the regression line of y on x. That is to say that we will use this to predict y when x is given. Okay. Now, if you compare this with the standard form, I'll write y on one side and everything else to the other side, okay, which will give me the regression coefficient, the first regression coefficient, which is r sigma y by sigma x, where r is the correlation coefficient which we want. Sigma y and sigma x are the standard deviations of y and x respectively. Okay, so that is negative 4 upon 2.4, and because of our assumption that the first line is of y on x, the second line has to be of x on y, which will give me, that is this line, which will now give me r sigma x upon sigma y, that is the second regression coefficient, which is now negative 4 upon 1.6. This will be obtained by shifting everything to the right hand side except x. Okay, so the regression coefficient is now negative 4 upon 1.6. Now if I take the product of r sigma y by sigma x and r sigma x by sigma y, I will get r squared. But it so turns out that if I take the product, okay, if I take the product, I'll get 16 upon 2.4 into 1.6, which is obviously less than 16, the product, right? So the value of r squared turns out to be greater than 1, and this is never going to happen. So our assumption is wrong. The first line cannot be of y on x, so it has to be of x on y. Okay, well, actually you can say that in that case, if we change the roles, then r squared will be 6 upon 25, and you can very easily get the answer. Okay, so let's see what the coefficients become. Okay, so now the first line is of x on y, so we have determined that, and the second line is of y on x. Okay, so we have to now go back to the first equation and write x in terms of y, and you can now clearly see that the coefficient, the regression coefficient there will be negative 2.4 divided by 4, correct? And for y it's the second line, so in that case it will be negative 1.6 upon 4, right? Negative 1.6 upon 4. So what is r squared now? We have to take the product of these coefficients, which will now turn out obviously to be 6 upon 25. So r is now root of that, so root of 6 upon 5, which is 0.4899 or 0.45. But there is one more question that needs to be answered. Which square root should we take? Should we take positive or negative? And you have to remember that regression coefficients are always of the same sign, and more importantly they share the same sign with the coefficient of correlation, because r sigma y by sigma x, okay, well the correct one is this one, r sigma y by sigma x or r sigma y by sigma x by sigma y, because standard deviations are never considered to be negative, whatever sign the regression coefficients have, that has to be the sign of the correlation coefficient, correct? So we have to take the negative square root here because both regression coefficients are negative. So that gives us the value of r to be negative negative 0.4899 or negative 0.49. That is option B. Okay, they have not asked, but if they ask you to determine the values of the means of x and y, that is x bar and y bar, you have to solve these two equations simultaneously. Okay, because we know that the lines of regression intersect at a point whose coordinates are given by, or whose coordinates are basically the means of x and y. Okay, so that was question number 16th. Let's now go to question number 17. Question number 17th, numerical methods, specifically numerical methods to solve first order differential equations. While solving the initial value problem, dy by dx plus ky equal to 0, y of 0 is 1 and x equal to h, by fourth order Runge-Kutov method, the expression for k3 is, this is purely formula based. You have to know the formula, otherwise you will not be able to solve the problem. Okay, in usual notations what I'll do is I will first write down dy by dx on one side and everything else on the other side. So in this case, because it is a homogeneous differential equation, I can send ky to the other side, so f of xy will become negative ky. Okay, and in our usual notations, y naught or y of 0 is 1 means y naught is 1 and x naught is 0. That's the initial condition. Okay, formula number 1, the formula for k1. K1 is given by h into f of x naught y naught. Now see, they have not specified what h is, so we have to keep it as it is. Okay, well, at x equal to h means it is basically 0 plus h, right? Well, x1 is actually 0, x naught plus h, but x naught is 0, so well, x1 is h. So k1 is equal to h into f of x naught y naught. So what is h now? We have to keep it as it is because we don't know the value. F of x naught y naught will be the value of the function at x equal to 0 and y equal to 1. So that is negative k. Yes, so we have got k1. You cannot determine k2 unless you know k1. So the formula to determine k2 is formula number 2. k2 is equal to h into f of x naught plus h upon 2 comma y naught plus k1 by 2. Now virtually x naught plus h upon 2 is not going to play any role here because the expression that we have as f of x comma y does not involve x, correct? So it's again negative k into y, so h into negative k outside, and you need to multiply it by y, which is y naught plus k1 by 2. So y naught is 1, k1 by 2 is negative hk by 2, so 1 minus hk upon 2. Okay, that is k2. Last, let's go to k3 now. Formula number 3, k3 is equal to h into f of x naught plus h upon 2 comma y naught plus k2 upon 2. And if you apply the formula and put the values, again you have to take h and negative k outside. Okay, y naught is 1, k2 by 2, so it will be negative hk by 2 into 1 minus hk by 2. So now you multiply each and every term by negative k into h or negative kh. So first negative kh, second h squared k squared by 2, okay, well into 1 of course, and then you have got 3 negative signs, so it will be h cube k cube upon 4. And if you compare this with the options, it turns out that it is option C which is the right option, minus kh plus h squared k squared by 2 minus h cube k cube by 4. So that is option C. Okay, thank God they didn't ask us to find k4 and then y1. Okay, alright. So some questions will be memory based, and this is unfortunately one of those. Okay, well, I mean, if you learn everything by heart, then these are actually scoring opportunities. Okay, so that is question number 17. Now there's only one question remaining, so let's go to that question, solve it and complete the paper. Question number 18th, again a question on numerical methods, this time on the LU decomposition method. On solving a system of equations 4x plus z equal to 5, x plus 2y plus 3z equal to 1, negative y minus 4z equal to 3 by LU decomposition with uii equal to 1 for I 1 to 3, the values of u23 and l33 are respectively, and we have got of course 4 pairs. Now they have actually given us that the diagonal entries of the matrix U are equal to 1. Okay, so let us now first write the given system of equations in the matrix form and then try to obtain the values. Okay, first thing, so first equation is 4x plus 0y plus z equal to 5. So the first row in the coefficient matrix will be 4 0 1, right hand side 5, second 1 2 3 1, third 0 negative 1 negative 4 3. Okay, now the idea is to write the matrix A as a product of a lower triangular matrix L and an upper triangular matrix U, with the diagonal elements of U being equal to 1, because that is given to us. So 1 1 1, so let me arrange the other terms accordingly. It is an upper triangular matrix, so everything below the principal diagonal will be 0. Okay, u1 2, u1 3, u2 3 in usual notations, and L is also a lower triangular matrix. So in this case it is L11, L22, L33 along the diagonal, L21, L31 and L32. So there are basically 9 unknowns now. Okay, and well, that has to be equal to 4 0 1 1 2 3 0 minus 1 minus 4. So in this problem we are not asked to determine x y z. Okay, we just need to determine two of the entries, so u23 and l33. Okay, so determining these two entries is enough. Now I think each one of you can solve this problem on your own. So what I've done is, or rather what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take you through the solution, what I've done, and you can pause the video at any time and do the calculations. Okay, finding L11 is not difficult. So L11 is very direct. So L11 is equal to 4, and from this you can very easily get U12 and U13, right? Yes, because if you take the first row and second and third columns, you will get U12 and U13 straight away. Okay, now let's calculate L21 by taking the product of second row of the prefactor and the first column of the post factor, which will give me L21 equal to 1, and from this again we can very easily determine L22 and U23. Okay, you can check it for yourselves. U23 turns out to be 1.375. Okay, now if you look at the options for U23, 1.375 is present in A and C, so B and D are ruled out. So now we need to determine the value of L33. Okay, so determination of L33 is also very simple. It requires us to know the value of L32. L32 can be determined if you know the value of L31, which is very easy to find. L31 is 0. I mean, you can go back to the matrix product and check it for yourself. Okay, so L31 is 0. Okay, L31 into 1, that is 0. Okay, then L32 can be determined similarly, which turns out to be negative 1, and then from that you can determine L33, which turns out to be negative 2.625. okay, negative 2.625 is option C, and hence question 18 option C. Again, I request you to actually do these calculations on your own. Only then you will come to know which calculations are necessary and which calculations are not required. Okay, so it is only through practice that you will learn how to solve the problem in the optimum time. Okay, so with this our solution of entire GATE XE Engineering Mathematics 2008 is complete. So this was a series of 3 videos, and the reason why I didn't make one video covering the entire solutions is because most of these problems are lengthy compared to the current editions of GATE XE. And the other reason is there are many more problems. Okay, in this case we had 12 2 marks questions and 6 1 mark questions, whereas in the recent pattern we only have 10 questions, 5 questions each of 1 and 2 marks. Okay, all right, so that is the end of 2008, and I hope my videos are helping you in your preparation. So all the best for your XE exam. Thank you.